So this morning we have a 22 miler on the schedule. It's going to be a little bit of a beast, honestly, slightly intimidating because the legs are feeling a little bit beat up. And yesterday we drove out to the mountains and we didn't do a long hike, but if you have a small kid and you have one of those Deuter hiking backpacks, you know how it is to have that kid on your back for even just 30 minutes. It's like a workout whether you want it to or not. So I got this 22 miler. It's going to put me at about 110, I think maybe 111 or 112 miles for the week. And the key thing with being able to execute at that high mileage level, and especially for these long runs, is far and away fueling. It's right up there with sleep. It's right up there with not overtraining. It's making sure you're getting those calories in to replace that ridiculous amount of calories you're going to be burning when ripping off 14 to 22 mile days throughout the week. So today I'm going to take you through how I fuel for these 22 milers. That's before, during, and after. Oh, there's Charles. All right, guys, so got to get this breakfast in, and then we'll hit the run, and we'll chat about fueling throughout the day. We got the oatmeal. That's going to be the first meal. We'll spice it up. All right, guys, so pregame here. I dissolved the noon caffeine into this guy, and what I'll do for these long runs is I've always been using this tailwind endurance fuel for every run in this training block, but sometimes I like a little bit of a caffeine kick, so I'll either put a noon, dissolve that, and then mix it in with the tailwind. They do make this tailwind with the caffeine in it already, but the one I got doesn't have it. Or I'll do some caffeine gels. So I've been using the Huma caffeine gels or the Martins, which I actually found out they're pronounced as Morton, like the salt brand. So that's generally what I'll do, but today we're going to mix them with the noon because I don't have any gels. And then sometimes I'll actually drink a tailwind. I'll just chug it to get some more sugar before the run, so maybe I'll do that as well. These Nathan handheld water bottles are a lifesaver. I carry them with me on every long run. It just makes fueling on the go so much easier. Alright guys, just finished 22 miles at a nice relaxed 750 pace. Wasn't really feeling any aggressive pace today. My legs have been a little bit tired and volume has been high and intense this week. So that is a watch out for marathon training. If you have volume and you have intensity that you haven't hit before, for me, my rule is don't run the long run hard. So I was definitely feeling the volume and the intensity this week, so I didn't end up fast finishing it too hard. My last few miles were 7:25 and 7:12. So just a little bit to turn over the legs, remind my body that at the end of a 2.5, 3 hour effort, I'm gonna need to run fast, but not too much to go into that danger zone because I already feel like I'm orange lining a little bit. Not red lining, but orange lining. So the big key here today is gonna be replenishing those calories. My Apple Watch says I burned about 2,500 to 2,700 calories. Now, I'm not sure exactly how accurate that is, but I did get a metabolism test 2 summers ago and they told me I generally need to be eating 4,000 calories a day. My baseline is I think
3,000 if I don't do any exercise at all. So that doesn't seem too far off for me. Now, one of the members of the community here, Mia, she was asking me about how I refuel after long runs, because she said she was getting shaky the next day, feels like those cortisol levels are elevated. And so that's what we're gonna be focusing on today, so that we can avoid throughout the rest of the week being in a huge deficit. And the first step of that is having a good breakfast, starting that run out strong. So back in the office there, when I was at the table mixing up my drink, you saw me chug a full 250 to 300 grams of straight carbs. And that's what I do, so that I make sure I'm not starting out the run in a deficit. So my number one rule, you guys have heard me say this, I said in a video last week, is always be consuming. As someone who needs 4,000 calories, I try to get as much as possible. So I ended up finishing pretty much that whole bottle of the Nathan that I had, which again is another 250 to 300 calories, tons of carbs in there, plus that caffeine, which gave me just a little bit of energy boost I needed to feel strong when hitting that 2.5 to 3 hour mark. So now I'm gonna make a Tailwind recovery drink. That's my go-to post long run. Shower, that recovery drink gives me about an hour to 90 minutes where I don't need to get solid foods in. So after I shower, we'll see what we can whip up for lunch. And then hopefully have a little bit of downtime watching football Sunday today. And then I'll see what's good for dinner. That's where I try to get most of my micronutrients in and healthy food. And we also always do family dinner, so no camera there, but I'll see if I can sneak a little shot of my food. Shout out to Charles. By the way, guys, if you haven't tried these recovery slides ever, they are a game changer. So I have the Hoka Aura Lux, and it's not like they go into your body and help you recover quicker, but they just completely take the pressure off your legs after a long run. So I wear these like slippers. I wear them all throughout the house every day of the week, but especially after a long run where your legs are feeling beat up, they're super key. Now we got the unmarked creatine here. This company gets enough free advertising. Now before I shower here, one other thing I thought of that I wanted to talk about before I get to my lunch is the importance of the meal the night before. Now, there's all this, now a lot of runners immediately think about pasta as something that you eat before a long run or a race, and that's great, but the main thing is just to make sure you have enough carbs. And the importance of carbs is that's gonna be your main energy source as you get into the later stages of the run, and particularly if you're not a super experienced runner. So one of the reasons we do these long runs at a slower pace is to teach our bodies to burn fat versus carbs. Then you can hold on to those glycogen stores, or those quick digesting carbs, those quick burning carbs that you can only store a little bit of in your muscles. You can actually only store about 2,000 calories of carbs in your muscles at any time. And if you heard me talking about how many calories I burned today, that's about 2,500. So I was burning fat for the majority of that run because I've taught my body to be a little bit more efficient. But as we are teaching our bodies to do that, it's super important that we stockpile carbs going into the race or going into the long run. And the day before is the best time to do that. Right before the run and during the run, we're just topping up and we're just giving our body that last little 5 to 10% we need to make it through. So focus on lunch the day before and dinner the day before. Sweet potatoes, rice, white bread, pasta, those are all great carb sources. Probably should have used the bigger pot, but we gonna make it work. A little bit of patience, that's all it takes. put an avocado on this, but these avocados I think are from Aldi and they're rock hard. The hack is if you live in the Carolinas, you want to go to Harris Teeter because they always have ripe avocados. But then the other hack is going to Aldi because they have the best prices on basically everything. Alright guys, so we got the spaghetti here, lots of good carbs. That's going to replenish those glycogen stores. I'm now just reaching the time with that tailwind where it got into my bloodstream, but I need some solid food. So spaghetti is going to give you that quick acting carbs. And I got some of the Beyond sausage. Shout out Beyond, man. Then I threw a little spinach in here just for the greens. Hopefully I'll have some more vegetables later in the day, but lunch I optimized for ease and convenience. Then you saw in the sauce, I put some salt, nutritional yeast, butter, and milk. And then over here, we got the sandwiches with the quinoa patties. These don't have a ton of protein unlike regular burgers, so that's why I go for the Beyond sausage with them. And then I also threw some barbecue on there. Again, the buns are gonna be lots of good carbs. And then we got the spinach just for some greens and color. Now your lunch is probably not gonna look exactly like mine, nor should it. You should be scaling your caloric intake and your needs to how much you are burning. But as I like to say, we don't want to be underfueled, so always be consuming. Remember those ABCs. Shoot for a little bit more than you think you need, especially on the long run days. So again, you could do a metabolism test, or you can look at how many calories your watch says you burn. But on these long run days, we 100% want to be consuming. We want to be consuming at least the number of calories that we burned, if not a little bit more, just to make sure our body has everything that we need to replenish our glycogen stores. And now, as you can see from what I'm eating, a huge percentage of that should be coming from carbs. Anywhere from 60 to 70% of my calories typically comes from carbs, and that's a pretty good split for endurance athletes. I'm not in a phase of my athletic career where I'm lifting a ton and trying to be big and bulky. I am laser focused on improving my running times and fueling my body for that. I treat my body like an engine, like a car, right? And I want to have everything I need to perform well. And if you're like me, then you should be fueling similarly, where you're getting a high percentage of carbs so that you have the energy you need to go out there and run with power, with force, and finish these long runs strong. So in terms of this meal here, the only nutrient I'm missing is probably a little bit of fat. Like I said, I would have thrown some avocado on there for those good healthy fats, but I did have a bunch of olive oil in the pasta, so that should give me a little bit of fat, and I'll just make sure throughout the day I'll get some peanut butter, nut butter, or something else to make sure that I'm getting in fat as well. Now, I don't track what I eat. I actually did for 2 years. Every day I wrote down every single thing I ate for 2 years straight. You guys think it's hard for me to do these daily videos? You don't know what I've done in the past, so this is nothing for me. So yeah, 2 years of tracking everything gave me a pretty good idea of how to structure meals, how many calories I need. And when I did that metabolism test 2 summers ago, Dylan, the nutritionist, actually told me to use MyFitnessPal for 1 or 2 weeks before going into it. And I was getting anywhere from 3,600 to 4,000 calories a day when I was tracking in MyFitnessPal, which is exactly what I needed. So I have a pretty good sense of what I need just by feel. If you are trying to get a little bit better, if you feel like you're either underfueled and shaky or eating too much and you're not able to go out there, you're feeling sluggish on the runs because maybe you have too much in your stomach going into it, then tracking using an app like like MyFitnessPal is good, or writing it out by hand, but any way that you can have a better idea of what you're putting into your body to meet your needs after you do a metabolism test, or at least get a rough sense of your needs, is a great way to stay on track during marathon training. Now, in terms of this lunch that I have here, I might not eat all of it at once, and when I'm working during the week or on the weekend when I'm gonna hang out with my kids or do whatever else after my run, I like to just make a lot of food, and it might take me 2 to 3 hours to eat everything, but I always shoot for having a little bit more than I need so that there's no point throughout the day where I'm shaky. I've had this in the past where I run, I don't replenish myself, and then later in the day I am super shaky, anxious. It's not a good feeling to be underfueled, and you're not going to be able to go out there and execute your run tomorrow if you don't get the calories today. So that's why I like to make this food in bulk, and then I'll have enough for the rest of the afternoon. What I have here will be able to get me through dinner. All right, time to do some eating. All right, guys, so dinner's done. Kitchen is clean, or nearly clean. I have one more thing to put away, and gonna watch some football tonight. Didn't get to watch any throughout the day. So for dinner, we ended up doing a broccoli cheddar soup. Now, this had the fat that I was talking about that I needed because we had some coconut oil based cheese in there. We also had cashews, which is a great source of protein and fat if you don't eat meat, if you don't eat dairy, and then some broccolis in there for some good micronutrients. And I had another one of those awesome ciabatta things from Aldi this time with some plant-based meatballs that Charlie got. So some of the meal was convenience from the ciabatta and the meatballs, and some is some good downright home cooking from Charles with the broccoli cheddar soup, which is a mainstay in our house. Last little fuel stop here, coconut chia granola cereal for the editing snack with some oat milk. Oh, oat milk and strawberries. Got the last little midnight snack for the editing. We got the coconut chia granola from Aldi, oat milk, strawberries, bada bing, bada boom, finishing up the noon in the water. The last thing I wanted to leave you all with is this is what works for me in terms of my schedule, in terms of the food sources, the nutrition that I rely on day after day, week after week. And I've found this from 3 to 5 years of really fine-tuning my diet, of going through lifestyle changes, of having kids, working a full-time job, trying to train at a high level. And I found that not eating meat works well for me because my family had a history of high cholesterol, and when I was in my early 20s, I got a reading of high cholesterol, so I completely gave up meat. I'm not a very gray zone person. I'm a kind of a black or white person. When I'm all in, as you've seen with these daily videos, right? So that's what works for me. I don't eat meat. I barely ever drink. I drink a lot of these non-alcoholic beers, these athletics here, and during peak marathon training season or any season, drinking alcohol is just another stress on your body. And if you want to recover quickly, if you want to bounce back from a hard 22-mile effort or 16-mile long run or whatever it is, if you're traveling a lot, I'm getting on a plane tomorrow to go to New York City, putting alcohol into the mix is just going to make it that much harder to be performing at a high level. And especially when you're thinking about sleep quality, alcohol reduces sleep quality too. So if you're not getting a lot of sleep and you're introducing alcohol there, that's just a recipe for getting sick or not being at the highest level. So these are some things that work for me. You got to find what works for you. Some people drink alcohol in moderation and it doesn't affect their training. Lots of successful runners do eat meat and dairy products. I've chosen not to, at least at this stage of my life, and this is what works for me and my family. You know, Charlie was actually raised a vegetarian, so she never ate meat, so it hasn't been too hard for us, but you got to find what works for you. You got to find those key food sources that you can rely on day after day, week after week, month after month, and you got to find something that's going to work for the long term. I don't do crash diets. I don't do weight loss based diets. As you know, my rule is always be consuming, and the way that I eat now, the way that I ate today, is something that I can stick with for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years and be training the way that I want to. So if you're looking to train at a high level, then you should do some exploring. What foods can you introduce to make sure you're fueled all the time? What can you take out that might not be the best in terms of getting your recovery? And what's working well for you? So for me, for a long time, I didn't fuel during long runs, and that was a big mistake because I would be finishing even 16 miles. I'd be finishing it limping to the finish line, not limping, but my legs feeling super weak. Now that I do the liquid carbs, I finished 22 feeling super strong.
So it's a lot of trial and error. This life is a great experiment, especially with running and particularly the nutrition component of running. It's all a great experiment. All right, guys, thank you for watching. So hopefully this gives you a little bit more insight into how you can craft a performance nutrition routine, a performance nutrition system that works for your training. Leave all your questions and comments about what I do and what you'd want to see more of in the comment section. As always, thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with another video live from New York City.